The royal family is pressing pause on public engagements as William steps out with Prince George. Plus, Princess Kate may not be seen in public until the fall. Royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams weighs in.
The only thing one can say is that there's really no indication where or when she could go back to full-time royal duties or indeed part-time royal duties.
And Lady Violet Manners previews her new app, Heritage Explorer, which takes you inside some of the most historic homes in Britain.
I think that's prompted so many people that perhaps never thought going around a historic building and the grounds would ever be of interest to them. I think it sparked that interest, and I think it's created what we're calling the heritage curious.
We got that plus so much more in today's Royally Yes. Welcome to Royally Yes. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and welcome to another big week of royal news, as always.
Lots of stories to get into, but unfortunately that all, really hitting the ground running and getting back to lots of royal events might not be happening.
Might not be happening for quite some time because the royal family are pressing pause on their public engagements for now. So in a statement, Buckingham Palace said following the Prime Minister's statement this afternoon, calling a general election, the royal family will, in accordance with normal procedure, postpone engagements that may appear to divert attention or distract from the election campaign. Their Majesties send their sincere apologies to any of those who may be affected as a result. So, like they said, the statement came after the Prime Minister announced that a snap general election will be held on July 4th. Tatler reported that stopping some royal engagements leading up to the election is considered standard protocol so that senior royals don't put themselves at risk for perceived political biases. However, the bigger public outings are still on the table. So that means, trooping, royal ascot, probably still on the table, but we won't see them on maybe a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame. You're correct that we'll still see them at Trooping, Garter Day, probably Royal Ascot, and even Wimbledon, hopefully. But those sort of day-to-day visits to charities is where they're going to take a big step back, and that's a shame for those organizations who really could have used the spotlight on their work. Yeah. And that's really what the royal family loves doing, is meeting with people and promoting these smaller causes. But luckily it's only temporary. It's just until the election on July 4th, and then hopefully, I know we've said this so many times this year, but hopefully maybe things will be back to normal.
Maybe. It's probably actually maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Prince William, so he can spend some time at home with the Princess of Wales, as she is still recovering and seeking treatment. So maybe a silver lining in all of this for them.
Yes, so true.
All right. Well, a new painting of Princess Kate commissioned by Tatler magazine for the cover of its July 2024 issue. It was unveiled and it is dividing the internet yet again. We have another painting dividing the internet. So a British Zambian artist, Hannah Azor, painted the Princess of Wales, taking inspiration from Kate's appearance at King Charles's first state banquet following his coronation back in 2022. So Kate did not pose for the portrait. Instead, the artist referenced as many photos of her as possible. The image in which Kate is depicted smiling with her hands clasped is described as a portrait of strength and dignity, which is featured on the magazine cover. Now, it did receive a strong response when it was unveiled on Tatler's Instagram. And so this is after Jonathan Yeo's official portrait of King Charles was still drawing reaction nearly 2 weeks after it was first unveiled. But he has won the approval of the person who matters most, the painting's subject, King Charles. He shared that Charles saw a mostly finished version of the portrait last year and gave polite approval. He said, when I showed it to him back in November, when it was sort of 3/4 done, certainly the face was done, body was sketched, and the color was mostly pretty much as it was in the end. If he'd been appalled, I think I might have rethought it and toned it down a bit, but he didn't seem that way. So as long as King Charles is happy, I'm sure everybody else should be happy. But yes, the painting of Kate definitely did divide the internet as well.
Yes, I'm not sure we'll get a reaction from the Princess of Wales on this particular portrait. Obviously, this was privately commissioned for Tatler, whereas the Jonathan Yeo portrait was sort of more publicly commissioned. It was sort of officially sanctioned in a way. But these royal portraits always divide people. I think people can have such a personal, visceral response to art, and it can, create so many emotions and feelings and opinions. And we've seen that time and time again. I love talking about it because I think royal art is so interesting and the history behind it. But on the bright side, at least it's sort of more royal news to get into, more royal stories that are popping up to keep us entertained.
Definitely keeping us entertained. Love living in the comments. Duchess Sophie might be the first royal to visit Ukraine since the outbreak of war with Russia, but she doesn't think she's owed any special praise. So she toured the country in secret back in April, and along the way, she visited the first family of Ukraine, traveled around the suburbs where a Russian advance was turned back, and spoke with victims of wartime sexual assault. The impact on survivors has drawn Sophie to many war zones over the years, and in her diary, she hoped that changing attitudes towards sexual violence during war can lead to more people coming forward and receiving the help that they need. Though Sophie represented the crown in an active war zone, she wants no recognition for her actions. She hoped that any energy that might go toward praising her would instead be redirected towards resources for survivors. She said, "The courageous are those who have reported the crimes committed against them. As we look around the world with so many current and threatening crises, my hope is that where conflict does occur, more consideration is given to creating well-funded early systems of support for survivors." So this was definitely a surprising revelation, because nobody knew that she was traveling to Ukraine. But again, so many members of royal family members are stepping up in very important ways.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a really moving piece that the Duchess of Edinburgh wrote for, I think it was the Times, where she spoke about her visit, and it was really moving to read, but also so surprising to see after the fact. No one had any idea she had gone. She very much flew under the radar, although I remember during this time there was sort of the questions of where is she, where
Right.
this was when we were wondering where the Duchess of Edinburgh was. Well, she was visiting Ukraine, flying under the radar, doing something that is so important, because to the people who are there, it means so much. And the royal family has been hugely supportive of Ukraine, of the president and the first lady seem to have a good relationship with the royal family. And seeing this ongoing work highlighting this issue, because the war is still ongoing and those survivors are still there, I think it must be so valuable for them. But also just to continue the conversation once Sophie returns back home is equally as valuable.
Definitely. Well, Prince William had a fun outing with Prince George. They had a boys' day on the soccer field. Football field, excuse me. William and George attended the English FA Cup final on May 25th. They twinned in navy suits and matching ties as they watched the game from a private box at Wembley Stadium. At one point, George was adorably seen holding up his hand to his mouth to bellow a cheer. The Prince of Wales and George watched Manchester United take on Manchester City, with the former presently leading on the scoreboard. Ahead of the game, William took the field to greet the players. George, however, did not appear to join him. I love that this is becoming like a really fun, maybe tradition for them, and something that they can really bond over.
Yeah, I love the boys' day out. I love that Prince George was there. There was sort of rumors that he might be joining Prince William, which kind of made it more exciting to see them out and about. You know that if they're going out to football games, everything is probably calm and uneventful at home. So it is a promising sign. But yeah, I hope that this keeps up. It's so many, dads and sons or dads and daughters, so many families go to these football games, these soccer matches together. It's great bonding. It just feels very relatable too, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does. It's so relatable. It's nice to see them, like you said, hopefully everything's quiet at home then if they're enjoying a boys' day out. All right, let's spill the royal tea, and it looks like Queen Charlotte isn't the only royal who keeps up with Lady Whistledown society papers. Queen Camilla shared that she watches Netflix's hit show Bridgerton just like the rest of us. Stars are just like us. During a visit to the 2024 Chelsea Flower Show back on May 20th, she was given a special tour of a Bridgerton-inspired garden sponsored by Netflix and designed by Holly Johnson. Now, it is inspired by Nicola Coughlin's character Penelope Featherton. As she was ushered through a stone arch into the secluded garden, Camilla said, "I watched the first lot." The Bridgerton garden at the Chelsea Flower Show is designed to reflect Penelope's personal journey, and the garden's initial focus is a moon gate, which leads to an ornate water feature and sunken seating area in the heart of the garden. I mean, Bridgerton's very racy, but season 1 of Bridgerton, excuse me, Queen Camilla.
I love this story. I love, Queen Camilla she's very passionate about reading and literature. And so far it's all been very highbrow, but I do wonder if there's a little bit of Regency romance on her bookshelf as she's sort of, diving into these juicy stories. But I thought it was so fun. Queen Camilla's always coming out with these little funny, interesting, down-to-earth tidbits. She watches Bridgerton. Her dogs are really naughty. All these little things that just feel very relatable. She's very down to earth, and I absolutely love her. And her visit to this Bridgerton garden just highlighted the important work, because although it was sponsored by Netflix and it sort of had like a flashy title to it, the gardeners that worked on it put so much time, energy, and thought into it that and all that work got a really big platform and spotlight thanks to Queen Camilla's visit.
I love that. We all have our guilty pleasures. So she's just like everybody does. All right. Well, royal watchers may have to wait several months for Princess Kate to officially return to the spotlight and resume her public duties, at least according to some recent reports. So royal expert Richard Eden told the Daily Mail that the Princess of Wales's friends have projected the autumn for her to return to work as a senior royal member. However, the source told Eden that no one wants to put any pressure on Kate as she recovers from ongoing cancer treatment. Tatler has also co-signed this report, and an insider added that the only thing that matters at the moment is her getting better. She has been through an ordeal this year. What this means in practice is that big decisions such as the appointment of new staff can wait. The source also told Eden that Kate has been given as much time as she needs, which is a reflection of her importance to the future of the monarchy. Yeah, I mean, what's important right now is for her to focus on her health, to focus on her family, and these royal duties can wait.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of people have sort of estimated not overestimated, but perhaps put too much emphasis on the physical health. But what I really think she's going to take the time on is her mental health and her mental health recovery, because what has happened in the last 6 months has been truly unbelievable. Yeah. Not just her physical health, her cancer diagnosis, her major surgery, her physical recovery, but the mental toll it's taken on her. Those rumors and conspiracy theories must have been a huge weight for her to have to carry. And so I do think she's taking the time to mentally be fully prepared to come back to work, because that's what all of her work is about. So much of it is about mental health, well-being. And so she's very much, sort of walking the walk as she talks the talk.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure she's, keeping herself busy behind the scenes. And like you said, just kind of focusing on what's important right now. And she is such an important part of the future of the monarchy that they want to make sure that she is as healthy as she can be, and probably healthy physically and mentally too before she returns. All right, well, time to break down the royal rules. And is it plausible that Kate does not return to royal duty this year? And will those conspiracy theories start coming back? Well, we had royal expert Richard Fitzwilliam weighs in. There have been some recent reports that Princess Kate may not go back to public duties for the rest of the year, maybe in the fall. Is this something that you see? Is this something that seems plausible?
I think, given the circumstances, I mean, she had major abdominal surgery in January, and then subsequently, as we know, is undergoing preventative chemotherapy for cancer. I mean, this is obviously tremendously stressful, obviously very draining. The only thing one can say is that there's really no indication where or when she could go back to full-time royal duties, or indeed part-time royal duties. It is very encouraging to see King Charles able to undertake royal engagements. So this is obviously what we're hoping is going to happen. And there have been reports that she's been seen out and about. But the facts are we have no idea, and it may very well be a process that takes a long time, because the essential aspect of it, obviously, is that she will act on medical advice, just as King Charles is, and very clearly, I mean, she won't be back on any basis that we can foretell now. Indeed, when she is able to go back, it will be clearly on medical advice and very, very carefully balanced.
Well, moving on to our royal history moment of the week, and King Charles is breaking a 200-year-old tradition at Windsor Castle and upsetting some neighbors in the process. So starting June 1st, local residents will no longer enjoy free admission to the historic site, a practice that began in 1825. Now, according to the BBC, the Royal Collection Trust will implement a discounted fee, reducing regular admission by half for residents with a Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead Advantage card, which offers deals at more than 200 attractions. So although the castle is a private residence owned by the royals, it remains open to visitors year-round. So I'm sure some people aren't too happy about this, but I guess that's the way it's going to be.
I think, yeah, it is still a pretty decent discount. Obviously not as good as getting in completely free,
Right.
but I think the costs for these things are going up and up, and the royal family is really keen to take the weight off of the taxpayers and to, make all that privately funded, and this is probably just one of the steps to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Windsor isn't the only castle that is open to the public. There are plenty more, and the Heritage Explorer app is the perfect location to help plan your castle tours if you are heading to London and headed over to the UK. So it's been established by Lady Violet Manors to increase interest in Britain's country houses, some that were even featured on season 1 of Bridgerton and The Crown. So Christine and I were lucky enough to sit down with Lady Violet to get the scoop and how you can learn more about this app. So take a look. So excited to talk about Heritage Explorer. So tell us how you came up with this idea and what it's all about.
So Heritage X was born out of the podcast that the last time I joined you both, I was telling you about and talking about Duchess. And it was really inspired by that, because invariably getting around the country like we did, meeting all these houses, it gave me such an acute understanding of, the shared challenges. I mean, the shared, frankly, beauty and kind of how incredibly lucky we are to have these incredible places in one little island like we are. But equally, they all have shared challenges. They're not a part of things like the National Trust and the public sector of heritage in this country. They are very much still in independent hands. And seeing that and witnessing the shared problems, I just thought, why does something not exist that brings them all together and yields their kind of collective weight for their collective benefit? And hopefully, supporting independent heritage is something I'm so passionate about, because I grew up in an independently owned historic house, and I know firsthand the challenges that, the real-time challenges that it takes to keep these places in independent hands. And that's really where it all came from. So a mix of my childhood and then also, the podcast and what that journey taught me.
I noticed on because I've had a sneak preview, I've noticed a really amazing feature that I think was called As Seen on Screen. And there's some highlights in the app on houses that we might have seen on certain shows or movies. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we might be able to find?
Yeah, because I think the incredible movies, series that have come out of Netflix and Amazon and BBC and lots of others, but majority of Netflix, really, I think, particularly with the Bridgerton sort of craze that's still very much alive and kicking. I think that's prompted so many people that perhaps never thought going around a historic building and the grounds would ever be of interest to them. I think it sparked that interest, and I think it's created what we're calling the heritage curious. I think people that, as I said previously, would never have thought that A, they could maybe go around these places, and B, there would be something there that would interest them. They now really are interested. So on the platform, we've really looked to draw on that. And so, it's all built into, without getting really technical, but it's built into the framework of our platform, because if someone's particularly interested in Bridgerton and they want to do the Bridgerton tour, then, if they're looking to visit houses that solely featured in Bridgerton and none outside of, Bridgerton's wheelhouse or production, then they can do so through the platform. And I think we're also, in time, we're looking to get some really interesting and exciting people onto both the podcast and the platform, writing about, what it's like making movies or series in these places, because I think that's that would be something I would love to read. Having seen a bit of filming of The Crown go on at Beaver, it's just so interesting how they go about lighting the spaces and all of the artifacts that you've got to move. You've got sort of people with gloves moving the artifacts while the actors are coming in, and just everything about it's fascinating to me. So we've really looked to make a big thing of the As Seen In feature. So I love that you like that as well, Christine, because it was one of my favorite, and I was sort of adamant to have that in.
So much. What was it like filming The Crown at home?
I mean,
and if people are going back, like you said, as seen on TV, so if people are going back and watching it, which scenes should they look out for?
Okay, so in season 1 of The Crown, Claire Foy plays the Queen, and there's a particular moment in, I think, one of the very early episodes in season 1, so you'd have to go right back, but where she's driving up the drive to what is meant to be Windsor, but Beaver is the stand-in for Windsor, because James Wyatt, who is the architect of both Windsor Castle and Beaver Castle, he actually created that kind of round dome shape that is very familiar to us all at Windsor Castle. That was actually inspired by Belvoir, which was built just before Windsor was completed because of the fire. So what's interesting is it was a stand-in for Windsor in Series 1, Series 2 and Series 3. And then there's also a Christmas scene for memory in the Elizabeth Saloon at Belvoir. And it's Claire Foy and others in the Elizabeth Saloon in a kind of Christmas scene. And that's all filmed there. I mean, there's so much, actually. Once you've been to Belvoir, you can then really spot the rooms because they're so distinct. So I think anyone can sort of spot them once they've seen it themselves.
I love this. I think this is such a great idea, and it's a perfect way to kind of plan your visit, and you can curate it to kind of whatever piques your interest too.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're coming in the summer, the big attractions like Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle, they're getting really, really busy. If you're not up for sort of being shuffled along with tons of tourists, these places would be a much better experience, much slower pace, where you can really, really, feel the castles and the palaces that you're in.
Definitely. Make sure to check it out, the Heritage Explorer app. All right. Well, that is it for us for this week. Christine, thank you so much as always.
Hopefully one day we'll feel like we're getting back to normal, but at least everyone is getting some, getting out and about, and it's feeling a little bit better.
Definitely. They're always throwing us a curveball. All right. Well, that's it for this week. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you next week.